Good morning. Good to see you. We are on the third day. I mentioned it before. It's Wednesday today for those who really dove so deep into eternity, just to bring you a little back. Wednesday. So it's in a few hours we will be passing the very middle of Sesshin, so the measured time at least. Around lunchtime, so Kronos will pass the mid-Sesshin mark. That's only one aspect. So when we really deeply meditate, if we totally engage in Zazen, it happens again and again that time loses its qualities. So I had this morning, after our morning recitation, I thought, oh, well, I'm not really well enough to sit. So, but I said anyway. I thought, yeah, I can always go out. I mean, I'm allowed to. Huh? But then suddenly there was the gong of Evo. And I was surprised because it was not 25 minutes. Well, I guess it was, but it's we think it doesn't work and we just engage in it, and suddenly we have some not deep experience, but we just realize, yeah, time is another concept we have. So, and that time losing its qualities, that's usually in Greek called kairos. So, not the measured time, but the eternal prevailing time. And I just encourage you too to keep it up also now during Teisho. So it's even though every now and then there is a picture, today of a cat, yesterday of a flag, no matter what, just keep your posture, the inner posture of Zazen. Sitting in meditation, sitting and during the Teisho. It's Teisho, it's not something to learn, really. It's more to be in resonance with what I try to share. Some hints on reality as we can experience it. So in Zen, there's 3 pillars. One is Zazen, which is the main practice. The second is Teisho. So also listen to some hints and also listen with an open mind, open heart to what you are in resonance with. And if you're not in resonance with something, don't bother. Usually we are asked after Teisho anyway to forget what was said. And the vibes, they go on, and if there are some vibes, all the better. The third pillar of Zen training is Doksa, so the one-on-one talks. Today it's your choice if you want to build on that pillar. If you have the clear notion, oh, today I don't have to go to Doksan, the decision is made. But if you're not quite sure yet, then just come. So if you hesitate, come. But that's later on. In today's koan, I present the case number 14 from MUMONKAN. That's a very famous koan, and it's also controversial, especially in our times. Already the title hints at it. Nansen kills the cat. But let me first draw some details for setting the stage. So today we encounter Nanquan Puiyuan. He was a Zen master of the 8th, 9th century in old China. His birth dates are said to be 749 till 835. His Japanese name is Nansen Fugern, or his family name was O, Roshi O, that was his family name. Nansen Fugern, his Dharma name, and David Stanton, who makes himself a sport of translating these Chinese names, translated it into English as Wellspring South. Very picturesque name, isn't it? The other person we encounter in this koan is Joshu, the one we already know from the koan Mu, you know, the one with the very solid question about the nature of a dog or a bird or whatever. And these two, they often appear in combination. So a year ago I probably had a Teisho on how Joshu, then student, comes to Nansen and asks him about the way. What is the way? And Nansen says, yeah, well, if you look for the way, it's not that. If you ignore the way, then it's also not that. And so that's a rather long dialogue, but also a very deep encounter between these two, who have had a very long relationship. They both entered monastery at the age of 19, both made rather early important realizations. Nansen was already master when he encountered Joshu, and took him as his student, and they had many, many decades of shared practice. And it's said that Joshu was practicing with Nansen until he died at age somewhere in the 80s. That's when Joshu was 40. And then Joshu continued studying, was traveling around with other teachers and masters until he himself was 80 years old. And only then he started to teach. But he kept teaching then until his 120th year. So he was 120 years old when he stopped teaching and crossed over in the next realm. Whether that's absolutely true or not, it's perhaps it's more hinting at some sort of aspect of their personality. Old wise men, like Master Yoda. Yeah, so today we encounter this Nansen Fugen as the master, the abbot of that monastery. And Joshu, who isn't present actually during the main happenings of the scenes we are to witness. He only comes later back from a journey he obviously had, and then as the main act, so to say. Before I read the actual case and commentary and verse, I would like to start with a contemporary story. I don't know where it first appeared or so, but lately we hear a lot about this story. Story goes, there was once a Zen monastery, and of course the monks, they were really keen to practice in absolute silence, undisturbed by nothing. But there was this problem, really serious problem, with a cat that was just walking among those monks. And they couldn't figure it out, so the cat was just constantly making, not terror, but the serenity of practice disturbed by cat hair, and unbearable. And so, probably also the oldest monk then had the idea, we just tie that cat to a wooden pillar. And indeed, the cat, when it happened, it was still a kitten. Here it's already a little bit older. And since then there was no problems with the cat wandering across the bodies of the monks sitting in meditation. Everyone was happy. The cat grew older. One day died. And since all the monks really had forgotten about the original reason why to tie the cat to the pole, they insisted, we need to tie a cat to the pole so we can really practice deeply. So, sometimes it's really astonishing how tradition contributes to forms we take for granted. I mean, it's just an illustration of how creative our mind sometimes is. And even though we do not know the circumstances of the koan, whether there was some quarrel, whether this cat should be tied to the pole or not, we only know there was quarrel. Would you please distribute leaflets? So, MUMONKAN case 14, Nansen kills the cat. The case. Once the monks of the eastern and western Zen halls in Master Nansen's temple were quarreling about a cat. Nansen held up the cat and said, "You monks, if one of you can say a word, I will spare the cat. If you can't say anything, I will put it to the sword. Yeah, it needs to be a cat.
Okay, everything's fine.
Okay. So, you monks, if one of you can say a word, I will spare the cat. If you can't say anything, I will put it to the sword. No one could answer, so Nansen finally slew it. In the evening, when Joshu returned, Nansen told him what had happened. Joshu thereupon took off his sandals, put them on his head, and walked off. Nansen said, "If you had been there, I could have spared the cat." And that's the case. Once the monks of the eastern and western Zen halls in Master Nansen's temple were quarreling about a cat. That's easy to picture, huh? So whenever there's 2 or 3 gathered in my name, we have all harmony. But sometimes when 2 or 3 are gathered, we so easily fall into quarrel too. Only something like a cat, doesn't even have to be a stupid cat. Just the way, how do we deal with that cat can cause troubles or quarrels. Sometimes, it's not astonishing even that it is in a monastery happening. I can remember Niklaus Branschen and Pia Giger together with Bernie Glassman, this American Zen teacher. One image is on the altar too, besides Pia's. They were founding the Plasma or the Zen Peacemaker organization, or the Swiss equivalent was the Lassau Friedensbewegung, the Lassau Peace Movement. And the members were all students of Pia or Niklaus. For years, devoted students. They went to many Sesshin, and I thought, they really realized the real thing and became also peacemakers. And then Pia and Niklaus decided to pass on the leadership for that movement to a Buddhist nun who was member of Katharina work, and to a Jesuit who didn't have a clue about Zen. So, and the Buddhist nun thought, it's good. I could introduce perhaps new texts for recitation. And couldn't we just once or twice or 3 times sit instead against the wall, sit towards the middle, so facing the center of the room? And I was really so astonished how much turmoil that created among the students or some of the students of Niklaus and Pia. Because they thought, no, the real thing is sitting towards the wall. And we have our recitation texts. So why change something? So even without bad or ill will, they suddenly find us irritated, and being irritated is often just the first step to the extreme form hatred, so, or quarrel at least. And so we can just imagine something was on in this same hall. And Nansen, who felt responsible for those two groups here in the koan, it's talk about the eastern and the western hall. That's often a monastery consists of different parts of the compound. At Lassal House, for instance, there is the red circle and the green circle. In the red circle, usually the same groups resides and practice, and in the green circle, it's more Christian contemplation and exercises according to Ignatius of Loyola. So we could also imagine, that could be reason for some tension, even though it's not really. Fortunately. Here it's the eastern and the western hall. And as usual in Zen talks often, or Zen circumstances, the master here pushes his monks. Oh, this and that, you're quarreling and about this cat, and I will just cut it in two, except one of you guys knows what to say. And sometimes when we are pushed hard, then, and especially if we practice in a way where we think, oh, it's all about right and wrong. Happens sometimes also. Zen has at times a way to trigger exactly this attitude of right and wrong, even though in the end it wants to go beyond right and wrong, into the realm of the absolute. But if we're not really liberated, then we are easily caught up in right and wrong. And I suppose that's also what's happening here with these two groups of monks. They were both so caught up in, what should I say? I can't say anything. But perhaps, he is the master. That also often comes just natural dynamics of being together. But that also plays a role in here. And then the ultimate symbol of right and wrong is the sword. If you can't bring the solution, this symbol will function according to its function. Here it's a very cruel image, but it's an image. No. We could have said, cut the cat in one and watch it spring on. But here, not so. So it leads to Nansen cutting the cat apart. Let me shortly present another story that you are very familiar with, I gather. It reads, "Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, 'Pardon me, my lord. This woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the two of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born. The other woman said, "No, the living one is my son. The dead one is yours." But the first one insisted, "No, the dead one is yours. The living one is mine." And so they argued before the king. The king said, "This one says, my son is alive and your son is dead, while the one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive." Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order. "Cut the living child in two and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two." Then the king gave his ruling. "Give the living baby to the first woman. Don't kill him. She is the mother." When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. Also here, it seems to be more clear. Huh? So the one who is voting for the baby to live obviously is the mother. But it really doesn't matter whether she is the physical mother or not. Also, I guess if just one of the monks would have stood up and said, "Oh, come on, let it be," that would have also been a possible solution to keep the cat alive. And even in this case, Solomon was just voting, give that baby to the woman who wants it alive. Yeah. So, but not so in our case. Nobody could say a word, and I don't know whether when both women in the story of kings would have been as stubborn as the other, Solomon probably had to use that sword. Fortunately, he didn't have to. We continue with our koan case. So, if no one could answer, Nansen finally slew it. In the evening, when Joshu returned, Nansen told him what had happened. Joshu thereupon took off his sandals, put them on his head, and walked off. Nansen said, "If you had been there, I could have spared the cat." Again, it's easy to imagine, how Nansen must have felt. His monks quarreling and not giving in, and he followed up on his word, whether it was good or not, and he confides to his student or his head monk in that case, and tells him, that was such a stupid day. And Joshu, out of a state of not judging or not taking party for the one side or the others, or even reassuring Nansen, you didn't have a chance. He just puts the sandals on his head and walks off. Very radical. So presenting, this, we can call it the Zen attitude or Zen mind, but perhaps it's much more general, not just Zen. So if we are called or asked in Genesis not to eat from the tree of recognition of good and bad, so if we just refrain from even going near that tree, we're not judging, then we're not engaging. And that's also something that resonates here. Joshu just puts on his sandals and walks off. And Nansen said, if you had been here, I could have spared the cat. Why? Because not involving in quarrel is enabling life. But of course, this goes too far. I mean, I'm okay with letting it go, but only to a certain point. Here, Joshu shows no sign of relative considerations. Just does his thing and walks off. Walks off the monks and walks off of his master. Mumon's commentary. What is the meaning of Joshu's putting his sandals on his head? If you can give a turning word concerning this matter, you will be able to see that Nansen's command was not meaningless. But if you can't, look out, danger. So we have to come to a state of freedom of many things. And if we're not, then we're troubled. Look out, danger. The verse, had Joshu been there, he would have given the command instead. Had he snatched away the sword, even Nansen would have begged for his life. So again, it's not about taking a sword physically and start killing people, but to have this authority of just acting out of the situation with what is right, and not in terms of right or wrong, just acting in a way that's pro-life, or pro-Buddha nature, or pro Why not? Had Joshu snatched away the sword, even Nansen would have begged for his life. Yeah. Show mercy. So far, this poem number 14 for today. And yeah, I beg you, don't go on your cushion and contemplate of killed cats. Go deeper, go beyond killed cats or images of this archaic scenery. That's also something I often struggled the most when encountering Zen anecdotes. They often have something very archaic. But if we look closely in our culture, we also find many examples like the one presented in Kings. Good.